go. Okay. You probably heard this earlier today, but Microsoft is doing like a promotion of docs.microsoft.com. So if you get any pull requests, they send you a T-shirt, basically. So one out. So let's get started here. So welcome to my session on getting started with the integration of PowerShell and Power BI. My name is Alexander Holmeset, and I have traveled all the way from Norway to be here. So just a short story before I get started with the presentations to know my background. So for about 2 years ago, I decided to take control over my IT career and started learning PowerShell in the evenings after putting my daughter to bed. And after 1 year of dedication, I got my current job where I moved from a tier 1 support job to a cloud consultant at a company called Cloudway, where I focus on Office 365 and PowerShell. And also 2 of my colleagues are MVPs, so I learned a lot from them. And 1 year after that, I'm standing here talking to you guys, so it's really excited. So the path can be really short if you just start learning PowerShell. Okay, so last year, Power BI got onto my radar, and it's kind of strange that I hadn't noticed this before. Heard of the program, but probably the reason I got aware of Power BI was that I started to get an interest in big data and reporting. And I saw that it was a really fantastic tool, and it's powerful and agile and handles big data very dynamically. So I just don't use any like boring Excel spreadsheets anymore. I tend to try to use Power BI to share data with people. And I recently have done a lot of custom reporting for customers to give them deep dive in their data and present it in an understandable way. Satya said that they went from nowhere to being the leader in business intelligence in the cloud. And Microsoft expects to have like a $500 million annualized billing run rate for Power BI on the fiscal year of 2018. So it's not a small product anymore. It's pretty huge. So here's a great example from a Power BI report. It shows accident statistics of the M25 highway around London. You see where the accident have happened, at what day, and the severity of the accident. And for example, if you zoom in on the map, the rest of the data points updates. And you also could show like where have the accidents on Friday happened, like in rush hour on Friday when every people are getting home from work. So this only shows you like how powerful Power BI actually is, and it's only the imagination that sets the limit for what you can report on. And I like to show this one also. This one also actually won a Power BI reporting contest. It's a Whisky Finder. So you select your region, strength, distillery, age, and character, and then you find your type of whiskey. So the way I'm put together when looking at a Microsoft product new to me is that I asked myself that there has to be a way to interact with this using PowerShell. How can I manipulate the data, push data into it? So I started Googling around a bit to see if there was a way, and I really found few results. It was like a few forum posts, people asking the same, but no really good answer. So after a while, I found a PowerShell module on the PowerShell gallery. It had been downloaded like 100 times only, and it had been published like 7 months prior to my discovery. So like, why wasn't this any more popular? Were people pleased like using SQL database, or didn't they just know about it? So hopefully a few more people download it after today. So what dependencies do you have for this to make it possible? First of all, you need to have the Microsoft ADOL PowerShell module that handles authentication against Azure and gives you an access token when you connect to Power BI. And then you install the Power BI module. And in the beginning, it was quite hard to get it working to find the correct way to set it up. From the module documentation, it just said that you needed an Azure application. And after more trial and error, I found out that you needed to register on Azure App through Power BI dev portal. So I got the correct permission and stuff. And even though I got a Power BI app, it still wasn't able to connect. So I almost gave up, but as a last effort, I asked a question on the Power BI community forums. And after a couple of days, I got a really helpful answer and had a bit more trial and error. Then I finally found the correct recipe to connect. So these are commandlets available for the Power BI module. I'm not going through every one of them now, so you will see them later on in demos. The first one is basically like you connect to your Power BI online instance. And second most importantly, we have switch Power BI context, lets you choose between either connecting to your own workspace or a group workspace to share with others. Okay, let's see. And we'll have our first demo. First, to get started, we go to dev.powerbi.com/apps, and you sign in with your admin account. Let's see. Log on. And you give it a name. Let's see. It's a bit delayed there, so. Okay. Demo. And you choose an app type. You set that to be native app. And you also need a redirect URL. This is where to send the login request. You have your tenant address there also. And you probably could be more granular with the access, but for this demo, I just had chosen all APIs. And then register app. And this creates an app inside Azure, and you just copy the client ID for later on when you're going to connect to Power BI Online. And after that, we have to go into the Azure portal, portal.azure.com. Let's see. And go to all services and search for app registrations. Let's see. And view all applications. And open your newly created app. Let's see here. And go to settings. You need to go to required permissions to give it some new permissions. Power BI service, and for demo purpose, I just selected everyone. You can be more granular. I also need to give it some Windows Azure Active Directory permission to access it as the signed-in user. And here's one of the more important parts where I failed in the beginning. If you don't press grant permission, the permissions aren't effective, even though if you save them and you go out and you still get errors, you have to remember to press grant permission. So this will save you a ton of work. Okay. And then we easily go to the, I've used VS Code there just to install modules. As these modules are on PowerShell Gallery, you just use install dash module and the name of the module. So first we install the ADOL module for authentication. And the Power BI module. Let's see. Okay, that's done. And the way you have to put data into Power BI Online, you have to put an array into the table, so you have to be in the format of an array. So just a simple demo here. I've created an array with my name, address, and zip number. I'm just going to output it so you see that it's created. Let me see. Okay. Let's see here. And then you connect to Power BI Online. You see that I have my tenant address, a client ID, and a username and password. And we're connected. Let's see. And then we need to define the columns in the table, and you set the type of column, if it's a string or an integer, and out of those columns you define your table. And after defining the table, you have to create a data set. And after creating the data set, you have to add that data set to Power BI Online. So this is the first time we interact with Power BI Online. And now, the last step is that we add that array to our data set in Power BI Online. So, let's see, what's the next one? Yeah. And then we're going to go into Power BI Online to see if the data has been uploaded. And don't worry about all the steps. I have a couple of blog posts, so I can show you afterwards, so you can read everything step by step. Have any of you used Power BI before? You? Okay, a couple of guys. It's kind of fun just to play with. It's basically just drag and drop. It's easy to get started with visualizing data. So I just have a table and select all the types here and see that it's uploaded data. I'm also going to try to remove the data again with PowerShell. So empty the table, not delete the table, but just empty the content of the table. Use remove Power BI rows and define the data set and the table name. Go back and try to refresh. And then now that's how easy it is to get started with Power BI and PowerShell when you know how to set the correct permission and get started. So it will only take 15 minutes to start if you have the correct recipe. So I have created a custom object and visualized it. Some of the Office 365 reports that's already there is that not all of them are really. As for now, you can't see like what groups teams enabled. This will be fixed soon. Now, the team. So now that's fixed. The data. And let's take a look at my note. To give reports to, for example, your CFO, you don't want him to have admin access inside your tenant. So I think it's much better to just publish the data through Power BI for them. So here you, for example, see reporting data on Teams. You see channel messages, chat messages, calls, meetings, and other activity, but you don't see which team is most active, how many channel messages have been in one of the teams. Also, the Power BI Office 365 adoption pack. You have like data on Exchange, Skype, SharePoint, and so on, but there's no data about Teams at all. So the way I did check this until like 2 days ago was that you could look at the Exchange mailbox for that group and see if a folder type that was named Team Chat. But then suddenly Microsoft started to add that folder to every group, even if it was a new group or old group, and even if it hadn't been provisioned for Teams either. So suddenly this was everywhere. So I found another way to do it. This was using Graph API. You could look at the provisioning option for a group and see if it had a provisioning option equals team. That only was there when the team had been created. Okay, so here you have the reporting part of my script. You have like group name, username, number of members, and the current user being processed. So we create this data for each user and owner in the group. Probably could be more effective, but it's just an example to what I'm going to report on today. So let's see. And you have groups table, number of groups, teams count, and like historical data about number of members and owners over time also. So let's see, another demo here. How to push this data in Power BI online and create an example report on it. First, you get a credential asset. Let's see. And you create an Exchange online session. The script is using that, and import it. Also, we need to connect to SharePoint Online, as it's getting data from the SharePoint sites. Let's see. Connect. Probably should have shortened down this, trimmed these widgets a bit, I see. Okay, it stopped. Okay. And then we run the complete reporting part of the script. We don't upload any data to Power BI this far, but just going to the reporting first. So this could take quite some time as the code is now. So if you have a huge environment, I would take a couple of coffees while waiting. So this is set up quite some minutes, so it takes around 5 to 6 minutes, so it isn't that effective, but it's just for demo. So you see on the way how many groups are left to process and some simple messages about the groups, like there's no document library created and there's only one conversation item and so on. So let's see here. It's yeah, sure. The Power BI module? It's actually a Microsoft employee in Japan. Found. There's starting to come more modules with other functions, but have appeared now recently, I've seen. So I'm not quite sure, but it's I'll get to it later on, but it's using like API for it. So it's like web requests and stuff like that. So let's see. It's on the gallery, right? Yeah, it's on the PowerShell gallery. Yeah. Yeah. Like these days, like Microsoft, it's easy to like either find someone from the community to fix it, or wait for a Microsoft employee to answer on GitHub or something like that. But this isn't like an official module from Microsoft. So, okay, I'm going to take a look at the short look at the output. So just going to see the first one. So I pipe groups info to select object and first one. Just see an example on the output of the data. Here you see the name of it, and the current user is in a sale, and there's 11 members and so on. It depending on some factors defined in the script, it gives you a couple of warnings, and finally here it gives you a fail status. So can help you decide if it's an obsolete group or not. So here, like, there's no SharePoint activity detected the last 90 days, but there's never been created a document library also, so could probably be been tweaked a bit. Okay. And now we're going to define all the tables and connect again. Even though it's a lot of data, it goes really quick to push it into Power BI online. Like 30 columns there and a couple of tables. And define all the data sets. And add it later on. So you see that I tried to output the dataset ID. If you're going to redo this or add new data later on, you need the dataset ID to update the data. You don't need to create all the tables and everything again. So it takes just a couple of seconds to upload all this data to Power BI Online. Let's see what I'm doing on time. Okay. So we go to Power BI Online and go to datasets. So you see that all the datasets are there. I'm going to create an example report on the groups data. I haven't trimmed this video, so I'll skip ahead a bit. So could happen that we finish a couple of minutes early, but if you have any question afterwards, so just use the time for that. And because of when I recorded, I used a low resolution, so it was easier to see all the clicks, but then I had to keep changing the font when creating the report. So we just give it a title, and we're going to create a box that shows number of groups. And there. And we have to change it to count distinct, as the script gives an output for every user and member of the group, so probably can be done a little bit better there, but to get the correct result, you have to count distinct. And next one, we're having a box that shows if the group is public or not, public or private. And also, you maybe want to see if the group is Teams enabled. So we'll show true or false on Teams enabled. And we also have added a list of all the users. And finally, column chart, I think it's called. You see that it's pretty easy. You just drag and drop the data you want to have in it. So here I'm going to show all the groups and how many members and owners there's in each group. Let's see. And if you click one of the groups, you see that the data and the user list updates. It's a public group and it's Teams enabled. And this shows how dynamical Power BI is. And also if you choose a user from the list, the rest of the data updates. So the groups the user is a member of gets highlighted. Also you can choose sort between private and public, of course, and see how many numbers of public groups there are. Okay, and a second example here. It failed. Let's see. There, I think it's starting now. Just a short example of number of teams over time that this script also collects. So just example data. I don't think the number of teams will decrease in the near future though. And like, see here. So what work here? Just for, okay. Yeah. Okay, like that, yeah. You can have real simple ones also, like when I was just playing around with PowerShell and tried to learn, I wrote a script that reported the total amount of email data in my tenant, so you could see how many gigabytes of email data there was. There's like just examples of what you can report on. And as you can use PowerShell now to push data into Power BI, that every source you can reach with PowerShell, you can report on in Power BI, basically. Let's see, and another demo just to show what's possible. Here, just for as an example, I've created a report that reported the CPU load of my computer, just as a fun example. And as my CPU have 4 cores and PowerShell starts counting on 0, the 4th one is the average of all 4 cores. Let's see, didn't start. Let's see here. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Could try to skip ahead, but I think I'll mess up the video. I think we still have time for it. So let's see. Didn't do anything. Let me check. It's moving. Okay. That's good. Thanks. Yeah. And the way I did it after running it first time, I just put it in like a while one loop. So it ran continuously until I stopped it myself. And I had a start sleep, so it redid itself every 2 seconds. It was continuously. It's probably not for practical use, but like just to explore and see how you can use PowerShell and Power BI as an example. So you see that it constantly is starting to report on my CPU load here. Let's see here. Yeah, still reporting, and I'm just going to show how this looks in Power BI Online also. Go back there. Sorry. Go to dataset, create report again. And to get this data visualized, you just choose a line chart and drag and drop those 2 data fields. And you see that it's started to report on your CPU load. So it's pretty easy to get started. And continue to refresh it. You see that it still updates. So just an example here. Wait a couple more seconds, see if it gets more data. Just have a drink of water. See that it's still waiting. Now it should update again. Yeah, you see it's still updating the data. So The two most common mistakes or errors I have come by when working on this is the error 400, 404. Sorry. The error 400 bad request is the most common if you, for example, have defined a column as an integer and you try to put a string on it, so it just fails because of that, but doesn't say straightforward, but you should take a look at that. And what did I note down there? Also, like with date time, if you have it in a wrong format in the date time. So here's an example from my CPU reporting. I just have to look at my notes, sorry. I had defined it as get time, as date time, and set it to universal. It was most probably like my computer was set to European time standards and Power BI online was set to American, I think. So I guess, have any of you had problems with time date formats in PowerShell? Any of you? No. Like it can be pain, like at least between American and European standards. Let's see. Error 404, most happily if you have the wrong dataset or table name. So this is pretty straightforward. It says the token expired. So it's been too long since you've done anything with the module, so you just have to reconnect to get a new access token. So as I'm a PowerShell geek, I want to get data back from any source and work with them in PowerShell. So if I push it into Power BI Online, I want to be able to get it back, but through the module, there's no way of downloading the data. And I even looked at the Graph API or something like that, and there wasn't a possibility either. So I actually managed to find the module's creator on LinkedIn and wrote him a message. And this is like what I really love about Microsoft today. Most of people at the engineering teams are very active on social media, so it's easy to get an answer. But he didn't even find a way to do it. So I found like a half-working way, but it has a lot of dependencies. You have to have a PowerShell module on your computer, and you have to have Power BI desktop open and have the report open there. And then you could extract the CSV file. There's a function in Power BI that you can choose to export CSV, but then you have to do it manually. But also needing to have a module and a Power BI desktop open, that's too much dependencies for me. I like to automate it, also maybe do it in the cloud, so you don't have to rely on any other on-premises stuff. So could be that Microsoft makes it available to get data out of it later on, but I really don't have my hopes up for that one. I think they see Power BI as a way to view data and consume, but not export it again, the raw data. Let's see. Okay. So let's see here. So why would you use PowerShell instead of, for example, SQL to get data into Power BI? You don't need if you use PowerShell and push it directly into it, you don't need an extra database to store the data. You just, data, like my Office 365 groups data reporting, I only want a picture of my environment like it is right now, and I don't really need to store it over time. But another example, like my CPU reporting, if you want to have this on, for example, a status display for your people working on monitoring your service, you don't want to have them push refresh every time. And to do that, you need to have on-premises data gateway from with Power BI, so you can schedule the refresh. But like another thing, like if you use PowerShell to use this, you can just create the tables as you want. You don't have to like be asking a database administrator for access to create all the tables. And so at least for playing around with the data, it's much easier just to use PowerShell as a source. Let's see. And here's just a short overview of what's possible if you step outside of PowerShell also by automating. As long as the language supports REST calls, you can push data into Power BI with it. The Power BI REST API has the following commandlets or operations. It's dataset, table, group, import, and dashboard. So let's see. Have any of you used Graph API before, for example? Yeah, it uses the same types of commands like get, post, put, or delete. Let's see. And here you kind of see the flow behind the Graph API. And the great thing, if you're going to share data with like executives that you don't want to give admin access, so you just want to have them a report to look at, you only need one Power BI report. You can publish it to a website, for example, or like any app you integrate with Power BI. So I think I'm almost done here. You see, yesterday, I think it was yesterday I took this picture, but now it's been downloaded around 1,350 times, so it increased quite some amount since June when I had a similar talk. And like right after I had my talk, I had published a couple of articles on the Power BI community forum. So if you Google Power BI and PowerShell, most of the content was from either that community blog and also my own blog in the bottom here. So if you want to read more about this and have all the step-by-step guides, if you didn't catch everything here, you can go to my blog, alexholmeset.blog, and read a couple more articles about it there. So it looks like I'm a bit early here, but if you have any questions, so just go ahead now. Yeah? What did you say? You could like, I'm not sure if it takes a snapshot, but you can like give them access to a website and they see the report area. You don't have to like have a Power BI account. You can publish it openly if you want, or you could add people if they have a license, so they can go directly to the workspace also. So, any more? Nope. Remember to give feedback, and if you have any more questions during the conference, just come up to me and say hi. I will take a look with you. Okay. Thank you.